Hello everyone, this is my 1990 John Deere 332. I actually bought it back in June of 2022, so it's been with me for a while. And for a little bit of time through to the end of 2022, it was my superstar tractor. It was one of my only running John Deeres. And then I got some bigger and better ones, which I'll be happy to show in another video, but this one went on the back burner. However, I just recently, with the help of Andre, if you're watching, thank you, fixed the bent four-way blade that I have, hooked it up with some skid shoes, replaced the quick coupler fittings on it. So now I have this blade that's ready to go, and I'm very excited to start this thing up and plow one of the last big snow dumps, fingers crossed, that we'll get this year. So I'll jump on the tractor, do a cold start, and while I'm plowing, I'll tell you all about it.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I've had this 332 since midsummer 2022, and I bought it during a time when I was really kind of just starting to build back up my John Deere tractor fleet after selling my first 455 back in 2019, sold my next one that spring. So the summer was just like, okay, what's next? And ever since I got my 322, I was acutely aware, even though I was only 18 years old at the time, that the 332 existed and was diesel, and it was stronger and more powerful than the 322. So I wanted one, and I figured I'd find one eventually. I looked around a lot, but never really took the hunt too seriously over the years. I figured I'd just kind of upgrade when the time felt right. And I saw some good ones, like one that only had 400 original hours, and some not as good ones, like usually at the auction circuit you'd find the ones that have missing hour meters and peeling power coat, and it's very, very clear that they're well worn. So I was taking my time, and eventually this one was offered to me for $2,700, and that was, about what the bad ones were going for, the worst ones that you'd see. And this one obviously seemed better than the worst ones. The paint was intact, it was running and driving and mowing just fine. So I said, you know what, yeah, time is right. I'll jump into this 332 and let's see what happens. So what happened almost immediately off the bat is something that I tend to encounter a lot with the diesel machines. The fuel system was full of this red bacteria that I believe the Australians called diesel bug. It doesn't seem to be incredibly commonly identified online, but it's this red slime. It looks like an algae almost, and it just permeates in the fuel system like nobody's business until everything's stone cold clogged. And most of my tractors, when I've got them, most of my diesel tractors have had some form of it or other. And really, once that clogged the whole system and stopped the tractor from running, I was forced to kind of take my first action and clean that out. So what that involves is obviously taking the complete fuel system apart, replacing all the fuel lines and hoses and filters, and really the only thing that kills diesel bug and actually gets it out of the system reliably is lacquer thinner. So drain the whole tank and plug it up and just slush it around with lacquer thinner for a while in order to get all of that out. Flush it through 2 or 3 times if you have to. You have to fill the whole tank with lacquer thinner. But yeah, it's an ordeal, and it was kind of nice anyway to get the excuse to take all of the metal off the tractor and take it down to the frame, because these things get dirty over the years and maintenance is deferred, and so it's always nice to wash them and fully inspect them and know what you're dealing with. Otherwise, you can miss some things. After the diesel fuel system was cleaned, I very quickly discovered, just out of curiosity, that the engine was running at about 190 Fahrenheit, that is, which isn't overheating, but it's darn close, and the design temperature is usually between 140 and 160. So I discovered at that point that the temperature sender actually wasn't working. Those things don't tend to fail very often, but in my case, one had, which meant that if I'd let the cooling system get any worse than it was very clearly going to cause some trouble. So first thing I did was take out the radiator. The one in my old 322 had been recored before I got it, and this one, well, it needed it. And unfortunately, a recore on that little radiator was $450. Next thing, I thought, well, since I'm going this far, I might as well replace the water pump and thermostat, and because who knows. And so, well, new water pump, $250 from John Deere. Okay, well, might as well replace the radiator hoses. There goes another $180. So the cooling system revamp was the most expensive part of all of this. But the good thing is that once you do that cooling system work, you don't have to do it again for a long time, if ever, if you keep up with your coolant changes. Oh, by the way, at this point in time, this is the point in the video where I started to notice I was leaving red fluid, like a trail of blood, behind this tractor. It's got Type F automatic transmission fluid, so I thought, well, I'll inspect the cylinders and see if anything's leaking, because I figured the blade would be leaking. But then I go to look under the tractor, and there's the transmission fluid pouring out from the Transaxle. So I figure it's a slow enough leak that I can haul ass back to the shop and see what's what and get it fixed, and you guys are coming along with me.
So, just to be clear, at one point, I probably from when I was backing over those giant snowbanks, a bit of snow hit the brittle old plastic sight glass tube hose and cracked it off at the fitting. And thank goodness I noticed that. There was still plenty of oil in the Transaxle left. It was just kind of draining out of the differential, out of the reservoir. So I was able to rush and get the tractor back here under its own power, which makes things a little easier. So my plan is to completely drain the reservoir here. Even though it's using red Type F ATF, I'm going to drain as much of it as I can completely and flush it out and fill it back up with used Type low viscosity high guard. Now they say don't mix the fluids. I believe them. I don't have Type F ATF, and it's way too expensive to get. So I'm gonna start the flushing process, and then of course when I do the 2-speed swap, I'll swap it over completely, right from the inside out with high guard. So there we have it. Okay, so I got the transmission fluid changed over with some used low-vis high guard, and I got brand new line on the sight glass tube there going all the way up and back. Now we are ready to plow a bit more snow.
And I'm back at you with a voiceover as well. So this is just finishing up the last little bit of the driveway, and I'll continue on from what I was saying before about the cooling system. Finally got fan belt, radiator, water pump, thermostat, coolant temp sensor, all replaced. And once that all happened, I knew the tractor was going to be reliable, but then the first winter hit, and it became abundantly clear that this engine was not a good cold starter. So how do you fix that? Well, first thing you try is replacing the glow plugs. And so tried that, got all brand new NGK glow plugs in there, and it was still chugging. And so then I went back and I thought, okay, well, let me maybe there's air in the fuel still. So that was when I actually pulled the lines off of the injection pump and did the injection pump lines, the copper washers and the O-rings that seal off those. So after that, believe it or not, a little bit of an improvement, but still just chugging and struggling to catch on when I cold started it. So since then, I've added a block heater, and that's about the only thing you can do. Is the best thing. Certainly good for a diesel engine to have a block heater in the winter in general, but that's how you start this thing. You just plug it in. And I thought that I might have a troublesome unit in particular, but since then I've talked to several Canadian 332 owners, and all of them say, yeah, those Yanmar, the little diesels, the 3TN66s that are in these tractors do not like to start in the cold. Same symptoms, so it's just a function of the engine. And something I'll have to live with. The 322 with the Yanmar gas engine started like nothing. No complaints whatsoever. So it's just the way it goes. However, wouldn't change it for the world. I would rather have the diesel 332 than any other of the engine choices in the John Deere 300 series any day of the week. It's just the best. So very shortly here I'm going to finish up the video, but I do want to talk about my future plans for this 332. I don't use it all that often. I've put about 40 hours on it in the past 2.5 years, and it really is kind of a backup tractor more than anything. I have 3 acres of grass to mow, so mowing it with a 50-inch deck, not the best. Although I do have some plans for it, so to speak, so that it'll still end up being useful. At the moment, with what I've invested in brand new OEM John Deere parts, I'm way past what it's actually worth on the used market, so it's become a bit of a vanity project for me. What I'm going to do is swap the 430 2-speed rear end in there. Now, I've sourced a 430 rear end, and all I need to do is drill the holes in the fender pan. Then I want the snowblower and the blade to get paint, and also, repaint the tractor, repaint the rims, that kind of stuff, and just kind of turn it into a showpiece, make it real nice. And since I won't use it fairly often, it should stay nice. And ultimately, with that 2-speed rear end in there, boy, is that going to be good for blading. I can keep the engine RPMs a little lower and still get tons of speed out of it. Well, here I am just parking it back in the garage. Thank you so much for watching, and I have a bit more content saved up for this thing. I'm going to upload it before the winter ends. Take care.